The morning sun cast long shadows across the rocky terrain of the Afghan mountains. Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez adjusted her scope one more time, watching the enemy compound through her rifle's crosshairs. 200 meters below, 3 high-ranking Taliban generals moved between buildings, planning their next attack on coalition forces. Commander Jake Morrison crouched beside her, shaking his head in disbelief. "Rodriguez, I'm telling you, it's impossible. 3 targets, moving independently, at that distance, with this wind? No sniper in the world could take all 3 before they scatter." Maria kept her eye on the scope, calculating wind speed and bullet drop. She had been the best marksman in her unit for 3 years running, but even she knew this shot sequence would be legendary if she pulled it off. The intel was clear. These 3 generals were planning a massive, coordinated attack that would cost hundreds of American and Afghan lives. Sir, with respect, impossible is just another word for challenging, Maria replied calmly, her breathing steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Commander Morrison had seen plenty of skilled snipers during his 15 years with the SEALs. But Rodriguez was different. She had grown up hunting deer in the mountains of Colorado with her grandfather, learning patience and precision from age 7. Her record spoke for itself. 43 confirmed kills, all clean, all necessary. The first general, a tall man with a distinctive white beard, stepped onto a balcony. He was the primary target, Abdul Rashid, responsible for coordinating attacks across 3 provinces. Intelligence reports indicated he was preparing to leave the compound within the hour. "Winds picking up," Morrison observed, watching the dust swirl in the valley below. "Even if you got the first shot, the others would be gone before you could chamber another round." Maria smiled slightly. "That's where you're wrong, sir. I've been watching their patterns for 6 hours. General Rashid always steps onto that balcony at 0800 hours for exactly 90 seconds. General Hakim checks the vehicle compound 30 seconds later. General Nazir inspects the guard posts exactly 1 minute after Hakim starts his rounds." Morrison raised his eyebrows. Rodriguez had always been thorough, but this level of observation was impressive, even for her. "You're talking about a shooting sequence that would require 3 perfect shots in under 2 minutes. The variables alone. I've calculated for everything, sir. Elevation, wind drift, target movement patterns, even the slight tremor in my left hand from too much coffee this morning." Maria's voice remained steady. "Professional. These men have killed dozens of our allies. They're planning something big for next week." The intelligence briefing had been clear. The 3 generals were coordinating a simultaneous attack on 4 coalition outposts. If successful, it would be the deadliest day for American forces in 6 months. Traditional approaches had failed. The compound was too well defended for a ground assault, and airstrikes would likely kill civilians. Commander Morrison studied his sniper through his binoculars. Rodriguez had requested this position specifically after studying satellite imagery for 3 days. She had insisted on this exact spot, this exact time, despite having multiple other opportunities for single-target elimination. "Talk me through it," Morrison said finally. Maria's voice took on the calm, methodical tone she used during mission briefings. "General Rashid emerges in 47 seconds. He'll stand near the left side of the balcony, checking his watch. That's shot 1. General Hakim will be walking toward the motor pool, approximately 180 meters northeast. The trajectory requires a 7-degree adjustment. That's shot 2. General Nazir follows a patrol route that brings him into view near the communications tower. Different angle entirely, but predictable timing. That's shot 3. Morrison had trained dozens of snipers, but he had never heard anyone describe such a complex sequence with such confidence. "Rodriguez, you understand that if you miss even one, this entire operation becomes compromised? We'd have to abort, and these targets will disappear for months." "I understand, sir. But respectfully, we won't get another opportunity like this. Intelligence indicates they're moving operations after today." This is our only chance to prevent next week's attacks. The radio crackled softly with updates from other team members positioned around the perimeter. Everything was in position. The mission had taken 3 weeks to plan, involving coordination between multiple intelligence agencies and special operations units. Maria checked her equipment one final time. Custom-modified rifle, hand-loaded ammunition, environmental calculations triple-checked. She had spent the previous evening cleaning and adjusting every component, ensuring mechanical perfection. 30 seconds, she announced quietly. Commander Morrison found himself holding his breath despite his skepticism. He had seen impossible shots before, but never anything quite like what Rodriguez was proposing. The margin for error was essentially 0. "Sir," Maria said softly, "I need you to trust me on this one." Morrison nodded slowly. Throughout their deployment, Rodriguez had never let the team down. Her judgment under pressure was exceptional, and her shooting skills were undoubtedly the best he had ever witnessed. "Take the shots, Rodriguez." General Rashid appeared on schedule, exactly as predicted. He moved to the balcony's left side, checking his watch, just as Maria had anticipated. She controlled her breathing, allowing her heart rate to settle into the rhythm she had practiced thousands of times. The crosshairs settled on target. Wind calculation confirmed. Range verified. Maria's finger moved to the trigger, applying the precise pressure she had perfected through years of training and combat experience. "First target acquired," she whispered. The rifle's report echoed across the valley like thunder. General Rashid dropped instantly, his body crumpling against the balcony railing before sliding out of sight. Maria had already shifted her aim before the sound reached the compound below. "Target 1 down," she announced calmly, working the bolt with practiced efficiency. Commander Morrison watched through his binoculars as confusion erupted in the compound. Guards rushed toward the balcony, but General Hakim continued his scheduled patrol, unaware that his colleague had just been eliminated. The second target was moving exactly as predicted. Maria's scope found Hakim near the motor pool. He was examining a truck tire, bent slightly forward, presenting a clear target profile. The range was different now, requiring adjustment for both distance and angle. Her hands moved with mechanical precision, compensating for the new variables. "Second target acquired," she whispered. The wind had shifted slightly, requiring a minor correction. Maria had anticipated this. Mountain valleys created unpredictable air currents during morning hours. Her grandfather had taught her to read wind patterns by watching grass movement and dust displacement. Commander Morrison found himself amazed by Rodriguez's composure. Most snipers required several minutes between shots to recalculate and settle their nerves. Maria seemed to flow from one target to the next like she was following a choreographed routine. The second shot rang out. General Hakim collapsed beside the truck, his body hidden from view by the vehicle's bulk. Security forces were now actively searching for the sniper's position, but they were looking in the wrong direction. Maria had chosen her hide site specifically to create confusion about the shooting angle. "Target 2 eliminated," Maria reported, already transitioning to her final target. General Nazir had heard the shots and was moving faster than anticipated, but still following his established route. He appeared near the communications tower, speaking rapidly into a radio handset. This shot would be the most challenging. Nazir was partially concealed behind concrete barriers, and the angle required shooting through a narrow gap. Morrison could see the tension in the compound below. Guards were running in multiple directions, searching buildings and scanning the surrounding hills. Within minutes, they would organize a systematic search that would eventually locate the sniper position. Windows closing fast. "Rodriguez," he warned. "I see him," Maria replied, her voice still remarkably steady. General Nazir presented a difficult target. Only his upper torso was visible through the gap between concrete barriers, and he was moving while talking on the radio. The shot required perfect timing to catch him when he paused in his movement pattern. Maria had studied Nazir's behavior during previous surveillance operations. He had a habit of stopping mid-sentence when receiving important radio traffic, creating brief moments of stillness. She counted the seconds, waiting for the pattern to repeat. The radio conversation continued below. Nazir was likely receiving reports about the first two shootings, coordinating the search for the sniper. His agitation was visible even at this distance, gesturing emphatically while speaking. Then, it happened. Nazir paused mid-sentence, listening intently to whatever information was being transmitted. For 3 seconds, he remained perfectly still, processing the reports from his subordinates. Maria's crosshairs settled on the narrow target window. Range calculations adjusted for the extreme angle. Wind compensation verified. Her breathing slowed to match her heart rate, creating the stability necessary for precision shooting. The third shot was the most crucial. Missing would alert Nazir to the exact threat, allowing him to escape while exposing the sniper team's position. There would be no opportunity for a follow-up shot. Commander Morrison watched the scene unfold with growing respect for Rodriguez's tactical patience. Lesser marksmen would have rushed the sequence, potentially compromising the entire mission. Maria was executing the plan exactly as briefed, despite the mounting pressure. The compound's security forces were organizing their search more effectively now. Vehicle patrols were beginning to move toward the surrounding hills. The sniper team had perhaps 10 minutes before their position became untenable. "Take the shot when ready," Morrison instructed. Maria's trigger finger applied steady pressure. The target remained stationary for another second, then 2. The timing had to be perfect. Too early, and Nazir would move. Too late, and the opportunity would pass. The third rifle report cracked across the mountainside. General Nazir's body jerked once before disappearing behind the concrete barrier. Radio chatter from the compound indicated immediate chaos as the remaining security forces realized all 3 commanding officers had been eliminated. "Target 3 down," Maria announced, beginning to pack her equipment. With practiced efficiency, Commander Morrison stared at Rodriguez in amazement. In less than 90 seconds, she had executed 3 precision shots at different ranges and angles, eliminating high-value targets that conventional military operations had failed to reach. Rodriguez, that was. Morrison paused, searching for appropriate words. "Just doing my job, sir," Maria replied, disassembling her rifle with quick, sure movements. The compound below was in complete disarray. Without their commanding officers, the remaining forces lacked coordination and leadership. The planned attacks for the following week would not materialize. The operational structure had been effectively decapitated. Radio reports confirmed what the binoculars had already revealed. All 3 generals were confirmed eliminated, and the compound's forces were beginning to scatter. Some vehicles were leaving immediately, carrying personnel who recognized the futility of remaining without leadership. "Overwatch, this is ground team," came the voice through Morrison's radio. "Compound shows signs of immediate evacuation. Recommend extraction for sniper team." Morrison acknowledged the transmission while watching Rodriguez complete her equipment breakdown. Her movements remained calm and methodical, despite the extraordinary nature of what she had just accomplished. "How did you know?" he asked. "How were you so certain about their timing patterns?" Maria shouldered her pack, checking that all equipment was properly secured. "Patience and observation, sir. Most people follow routines without realizing it. Military commanders, especially. They maintain schedules because it provides operational structure." The extraction helicopter's distant rotor noise became audible as it approached their position. The mission had been completed with textbook precision, eliminating 3 high-value targets, without collateral damage or friendly casualties. Commander Morrison realized he had witnessed something remarkable. Rodriguez had not simply made 3 difficult shots. She had demonstrated tactical patience, environmental awareness, and operational planning that exceeded anything he had seen in 15 years of special operations. "Rodriguez," he said as they prepared for extraction, "I owe you an apology." Maria looked at him with genuine curiosity. "For what, sir?" "For saying it was impossible." The helicopter touched down in a cloud of dust and debris. As they moved toward the aircraft, Morrison could see the compound continuing to empty below. The intelligence assessment had been correct. Eliminating the 3 generals had effectively neutralized the threat to coalition forces. During the flight back to base, Morrison reflected on the morning's events. "Rodriguez, sat quietly, cleaning her rifle and reviewing mission notes. Her demeanor suggested that executing 3 impossible shots was simply another day's work, but Morrison knew better. He had just witnessed one of the most remarkable displays of marksmanship and tactical planning in modern military history. The moment stretched like an eternity. Everything depended on the next 2 minutes. 3 months later, Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez stood in a ceremony hall at Fort Bragg, wearing her dress uniform with newly added decorations. The Bronze Star with V device gleamed on her chest, awarded for exceptional valor during the mountain operation that had prevented dozens of coalition casualties. Commander Morrison watched from the audience as Rodriguez received recognition from the commanding general. The citation, heavily redacted for security purposes, mentioned her extraordinary marksmanship and tactical acumen under extreme pressure. It could not, of course, describe the specific details of that morning in Afghanistan. After the ceremony, Morrison approached Rodriguez near the reception table. She was surrounded by fellow service members congratulating her on the commendation, but she seemed more interested in the coffee than the attention. "How does it feel to be officially recognized as impossible?" Morrison asked with a smile. Maria laughed quietly. "Still feels like I was just doing what needed to be done, sir. Though I admit the medal is pretty nice." Mana. The operation had become legendary within special operations circles, though few people knew the complete story. Intelligence reports confirmed that the elimination of the 3 generals had prevented coordinated attacks that would have targeted 4 coalition outposts simultaneously. Conservative estimates suggested Rodriguez's actions had saved at least 40 American and Allied lives. "I've been thinking about that morning," Morrison continued. "About what you said regarding impossible, just being another word for challenging." Rodriguez nodded, remembering their conversation on the mountainside. "My grandfather used to tell me that impossible shots are just shots nobody has figured out how to make yet. He taught me that patience and preparation can overcome most obstacles." Morrison had read Rodriguez's background file multiple times since the mission. Her grandfather, Vicente Rodriguez, had been a competitive marksman and hunting guide in Colorado. He had taught Maria to shoot when she was 7 years old, emphasizing precision over speed and observation over instinct. "The military is recommending you for advanced sniper instructor school," Morrison said. "Your techniques and tactical approach could benefit an entire generation of marksmen." Maria considered this information carefully. Teaching had always appealed to her, but she enjoyed field operations and the direct impact they provided. The decision would mean leaving active combat duties for classroom responsibilities. "Would I still get deployment opportunities?" she asked. "Absolutely. Instructor positions often include field training exercises and consultation on special operations. Plus, you'd be developing skills in the next generation of snipers." The reception continued around them as other award recipients mingled with family members and colleagues. Rodriguez noticed several young soldiers watching her from across the room, clearly impressed by her recognition and curious about her experiences. "I think those soldiers have questions for you," Morrison observed. Following her gaze, Maria walked over to the group of enlisted personnel, who straightened to attention when she approached. "Relax," she said with a smile. "You have questions about marksmanship?" A young corporal spoke up nervously. "Sergeant Rodriguez, is it true you can hit targets at over 600 meters consistently? With proper training, equipment, and conditions, long-range precision is achievable," Maria replied diplomatically. "But the most important factor is patience. Most shooting errors come from rushing the shot." Another soldier asked about her training routine and equipment preferences. Rodriguez spent 20 minutes discussing fundamentals, practice techniques, and the importance of understanding environmental factors. Her explanations were clear and practical, focusing on skills that could be developed through dedicated practice. Commander Morrison watched this impromptu teaching session with growing conviction that Rodriguez would excel as an instructor. Her ability to break down complex concepts into understandable components was impressive, and her genuine interest in helping others improve was evident. Later that evening, Rodriguez and Morrison sat in the base's quiet officers' club, reviewing the day's events over coffee. The ceremony had been meaningful, but both were already thinking about future operations and responsibilities. "I've decided about instructor school," Maria announced. "I want to do it." Morrison smiled, not surprised by her decision. "What convinced you?" "Those soldiers today. They reminded me of myself when I was starting out, eager to learn but not sure how to improve. If I can teach them to be more effective marksmen, that multiplies the impact beyond what I can achieve individually." The conversation shifted to practical considerations. Instructor school would require 6 months of additional training, covering teaching methodology, curriculum development, and advanced marksmanship techniques. Rodriguez would learn to train others in the skills that had made her exceptional. "There's something else," Morrison said, pulling out a classified folder. "Special Operations Command wants to document your mountain operation for training purposes. Obviously, sensitive details would be modified, but the tactical approach and decision-making process could benefit other sniper teams." Rodriguez examined the proposal carefully. Creating training materials based on actual operations was common practice, but she was concerned about operational security and protecting intelligence sources. "What level of detail would be included?" she asked. "Primarily the planning process, environmental calculations, and execution timing. The specific target information and location details would be generalized. The focus would be on teaching tactical patience and complex target engagement." Maria agreed to participate in the documentation process, recognizing its value for future operations. Her techniques and mental approach during the mountain mission represented best practices that could improve overall military effectiveness. 6 months later, Rodriguez was leading her first class of advanced sniper candidates through a challenging training scenario. The students faced multiple targets at varying ranges, with limited time and changing environmental conditions. "Remember," she called out as the exercise began, "impossible is just another word for challenging. Calculate your variables, trust your training, and execute with patience." The students moved through the course with varying degrees of success, but all showed improvement from their initial assessment. Rodriguez noted each individual's strengths and weaknesses, planning personalized instruction to address specific needs. After the training exercise, one student approached her with a question about long-range shooting in mountainous terrain. As Rodriguez explained, wind calculation techniques and elevation adjustments, she thought about her grandfather's patient instruction during her childhood hunting trips. Commander Morrison, now stationed at a different base, received regular reports about Rodriguez's success as an instructor. Her students consistently scored higher on marksmanship evaluations than previous classes, and several had distinguished themselves during deployment operations. The training program based on the mountain operation had been implemented across multiple military schools. Thousands of soldiers had learned from Rodriguez's approach to tactical patience and complex target engagement, improving their effectiveness in various combat situations. Rodriguez had proven that exceptional achievement often comes from combining natural talent with dedicated practice, careful observation, and the wisdom to recognize that most impossible challenges simply require better preparation and execution. Her grandfather's lessons about patience and precision had evolved into a teaching philosophy that influenced an entire generation of military marksmen. The 3 shots that Commander Morrison had declared impossible had become the foundation for training programs that would save countless lives in future operations. Years later, when military historians studied the most significant sniper operations of the early 21st century, the mountain mission would be remembered not just for its immediate tactical success, but for its lasting impact on military training and doctrine. Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez had proven that sometimes the most important victory is not just completing an impossible mission, but teaching others that impossible is simply a challenge waiting to be solved.